Welcome to the Leverage Show. This is Brett Ingram, and today I want to share with you how you can double your website sales. So you have a website. Just about every company nowadays has a website, and you set it up with the idea that, geez, if I can get people to actually go onto my site, make purchases, and buy things from me, how amazing is that? There's no overhead, there's no employees for that, there's no storefront, there's no rental expense, none of that stuff. And so the idea of being able to make sales through your website is great. But the reality of it is, no matter how many sales you're already getting, even if your website's already killing it, you could probably be making even more, because there are ways to optimize your website to bring in even more sales than what you're currently doing. So if your sales are not as much as you'd like them to be, you can increase them. And even if your sales are already exceeding what you thought they could be, you could still ultimately make more, because there's a very well established but really little known method to optimize your website. Now, if you think back to the old days of advertising, what all of these mailing companies used to do that did direct mail is they would split test things, because they're spending millions of dollars mailing out direct mail pieces. They're not just going to write the sales copy and put together a letter and just mail out millions of them. They would do a small batch of a few thousand, and they would make some changes to it, and they'd send out a few thousand, and they'd make a few other changes, they'd send out a few thousand, and then they'd get the results back in from those, and then they would decide which one to run with. And so you can do exactly the same thing with your website. And the idea of it is called split testing. So how do you split test with a website in order to be able to make more sales, and why or how does it work? Well, here's the thing about any sort of sales copy or anything that you're doing, whether it's online or offline, with the intention of getting people to take action or to buy something from you. Your perspective, or the perspective of the person that you hired to write the sales copy, is only one perspective on it. And you may think that, this particular sales letter is fantastic or whatever, but ultimately it doesn't matter what the person who wrote it thinks or what you think about it. What matters is what your customers think about it. And so what you want to do is basically test it. With a website, the way it works, and this is the fantastic part about it, is that it's automatic, it's real time, and it's actually really cheap or free. Whereas in the old days, like if you were mailing stuff out, that would have cost you a fortune, and you had to wait weeks to even get the results. So the first thing that you're ultimately going to need is some sort of conversion tracking software. Now, you can just do a Google search for conversion tracking software, and there are some up there. The one that I use is actually PVE Lab, but there are a lot of other ones that are less sophisticated, less expensive. It doesn't matter how many bells and whistles it has. What matters is that it will allow you to make variations of your offer page or your website, and it will allow you to test which one is bringing you in more sales. And then the way it works is you just hook up the different pages. So you have your one page, and then what you want to do on the other page is you want to change the headline, or you want to change the images, or change the price. You want to change one element, but not a lot of elements. Because if you change a lot of elements, you don't know what element was responsible for the difference. So you make multiple versions of the same page. You can easily clone pages on a website. And then all you're going to do from there is make a single change, and you can test as many variations as you want. Now, if you have a lot of traffic coming to your site, if you want to test 4 or 5 or even more variations, that's fine. If you don't have a lot of traffic to your site, I recommend you only start with 2 or 3, because you're going to need enough results to be able to determine how well it's doing. So if you have 7 or 8 different test pages, it might take you a month to be able to figure out what one is working. If you start with 2 or 3, and normally your big change elements of a sales page are going to be price, are going to be headline, and if you don't have a headline because it's sort of a corporate website or something, you could change the images at the top, or you could change your, whatever, like the mission statement, or whatever it is that people see when they first hit the page, those are the elements most often you want to try to change first. And then the software will automatically show a different version to each visitor. So it will rotate. If you have 3 different versions that you're testing, it'll show version 1 to the first visitor, version 2 to the second visitor, version 3 to the third visitor, then back around to version 1. And it will track how many clicks you're getting on each, and it will track conversions, how many sales or actions. Now, you might say, well, I don't make sales for my website. I just want to try to get leads. That's fine. The principle is exactly the same, because basically, if you're capturing leads, the way that you can do this is you can still hook it up to, if they're online leads where people fill out a form, you can still hook it up exactly the same way. Now, if they're phone leads where people are calling in or something like that, you would just put a little version number on the web page and then ask them to give you the code that's in the top right corner of the web page or whatever it is. That way you can track it. The methodology that you use, the specifics, are less important than the bigger idea. And the bigger idea is you want to track and optimize your site, because here's what this means for you. Let's say that in your website in a given month you made 100 sales, all right? And let's just say you make $100 a sale. So you made $10,000 this month from your website in sales. Now, if you make one small tweak to that site, and now another version brings you in 120 sales, you've just gone to $12,000 a month. If you make another tweak and it brings you to 15 sales, you've just gone to $15,000 a month. And the beauty of it is you can keep it at that. Because once you've found something that works, keep it at that until it stops converting. So you're going to leave it at that new version, the highest converting version, as your main page. Now you've just added 50% more revenue to your bottom line every single month for literally almost no work. You basically made a couple changes to a sales letter, you plugged it into some software, and you just sit back and watch the stats. And the stats tell you the rest of the story. And this is a great foundational concept for everything that you're actually doing in your business, especially if you're doing things in the online world, because in the online world, it's so easy to test. You get instant results on just about anything that you want to test. You can test sales pages, offer pages, opt-in pages or sign-up pages, subscriber pages, lead capture pages, any kind of pages that you want. And it'll work for literally any site. So it doesn't cost a lot. It doesn't take a lot of time to get that stuff set up, but it can make a huge difference in your bottom line. And this should be something that you incorporate into every aspect of your business. So even in your offline marketing, you should be doing exactly the same thing. If you have things that are offline marketing and you're creating flyers or you're creating mailers or you're doing any of those other kinds of things, obviously magazine ads, you can try various different versions of the same thing and you put some sort of a code there so that way you can track exactly where the results are coming from. But split testing is something that not enough people with online websites do, and it's extremely valuable. I can tell you that I split test my offers and I always verify whether they're working. It also helps you in terms of spending money on advertising. If you know your site is not converting, and why are you going to go out and spend money on it? I mean, that isn't going to get more people to buy it. It's just going to get more wasted money of people seeing it and not buying. On the other hand, if you know that X number of people are buying for every visitors you get, you can actually calculate exactly how much you make per visitor, and then that's how much you could spend on the advertising. So you can use that to evaluate what sort of advertising things that make economical sense for your business. And then you can scale that up as well. So there are a lot of different applications for this, but just to put this into real world numbers for you, so you understand how valuable this is, I split test my offers, and I have changed the headline on just one page, and I've had that double my sales, literally double my sales, double my conversion rate, where I went from a 6% to a 12% conversion rate. So instead of 6 people out of every 100 buying, 12 out of every 100 people were buying. And I've known other marketers to do the same thing, and colors on their page, the image that they had at the top, the price is certainly a big one. I've definitely tested with price, and I found both things. I found when I went with a lower price, which is what you would think would make a lot more sales, I found that it had more than doubled sales. I've also found sometimes that when I've lowered the price, I only increased by 10% of sales, but I lowered the price, so I made less. So don't always think that a lower price is better. Sometimes the higher price, even though the conversion rate is a little bit lower, makes you more profit. And that's really what we're looking at here, is how do we maximize our return on our investment and maximize our profit on all of our advertising, especially our online stuff and our websites, because they're already up there. We might as well make them work harder for us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. As always, if you have any questions or comments, share them with me at levrigeshow.com or tweet them at #levrigeshow. And until next time, make it happen.